this a component. We group everything up, and I'm going to right click and say create a component. So again, that creates a purple frame. If you folks might have gone through and I just took my headphone out, downloaded like icons from any of the plugins, when you've brought them into your platform, they're probably been a component. So you've probably seen this little purple state already. But now what we need to do is we need to add interactions to this. So you can see this little plus sign up here. So now what we're doing is we're adding a variant. So if this is mobile, we'll probably only have one variant, but we could also have two. But once we add one, we can see we can go ahead and click and we can keep adding more variants if we need to. For the most part, there's, especially on mobile, there's probably only one. But let's pretend that this is desktop. Okay, so we're going to do our default state, we're going to do our hover state, and then we're going to do our click state. So now what we need to do is we need to change them. So if I click, I'm immediately clicking on this whole section. So you just need to double click to get into the button. So we have our default, we have our variant 2, and we have our variant 3. I'm crazy. I like to order them my own way. So what we can also do, you can see that now over on the right-hand side, we have this as a variant. This is our property 1, but it's called default. If I click this one, you can see it's called variant 2. I can change this here, so I can call this hover. And I can also change this here as well. Maybe I can't change that there. There it goes. So now I have default, hover, and click. So what I just want to do now is ensure that the like actually physically change the look of these. So we do have those different states for an interaction. So again, if I double click, I'm now in that whole button. If I change the color here, you can see what happens. Now it's actually only going to change the actual variant background color. So we don't want to do that. We want to make sure that we essentially just keep clicking to get into that button. Again, you can also just go over into your layer section and physically click into those separate areas as well if that double, triple, quadruple clicking doesn't work for you. So let's just pick a color for this. Gosh, I can never think of colors like on the fly. I panic, always panic. Okay, so let's maybe do different shades of green. Let's go brighter because I can't read that.
You don't like green?
No, not at all. My kitchen cabinets. This wall's another green. That wall's green. There's a lot of green in my home. Lots of plants over there. I'd show you, but my kids' toys are all over the place. Okay, so we have our default state. So this is what we want it to look like when you land on your platform. This is just what it's going to look like. And again, we call that default. So if someone's now going to take their cursor and they're going to hover over that button, what's going to happen? So again, I can like click a whole bunch of times, or I can just physically go into those layers to be able to change them. So when it comes to a fill, you know what, I'm going to pick up this color first, and then I'm just going to maybe make it a little bit darker. So now that I made it a little bit darker, maybe I also want to beef up that typeface, and then it's also a bit hard to read. So I'm also going to change that typeface to be in white. I have paranoia that this might not be dark enough, so let's make that a little bit darker. Pardon me. What we also might want to do, it's not, I want to say like it's kind of something that's coming on, which is adding like a drop shadow or something like that. You could do whatever you want to these things. So if I double click, so I would go just into that rectangular button, I can add an effect and I can add a drop shadow. I really have a problem with shadows. I just don't love them. We can do an inner shadow. You can do, you can blur it. This one's actually probably not so bad. But I just don't love them. So I would personally that's just my style. But you could do that. You can do anything you want. Again, if you really wanted to, you could actually go in here and it could be wrong. I was going to say, I think you can actually even, yeah. I can make it a rectangle now. So you can do whatever you want to those. You can go in and also like make them longer. Of course, we'll then, if we make it longer, you'll then need to make sure you open up your variants to do that. But you could do anything you want. And a lot of times when it comes to getting used to these interactions is with experimentation. So you're like, how would it interact if I do that? Give it a go. So now this one, we're going to call this like on click. So again, I'm just going to triple click. And I'm going to make this even darker. And now we're going to make this bold. And we're going to make it white. So now I have all of those states. I have them set. I'm fairly happy with it. So now if I go over to my actual platform where I'm going to be needing to put that button, I'm just going to go over. So we have our layers tab here, and we go over to the assets tab. And now it starts loading up assets. We had more, we have it. We named it button. It's right there. So you can see I pop it in there and we have button. So it's physically in there now, but there's no actual interactions happening. So we might have set it to do those things, but we might have just called it that. Nothing's actually physically happening yet. So what we'll do is over onto the buttons, we're going to now, instead of our design tab, we're going to use the prototype tab. So once we go into the prototype, again, we need to click a few times. So remember I told you my roof leaked? There's someone here to look at it now, so my dog's going bonkers. Sorry, let me just pause and make sure nothing else. Okay, we're good. Sorry, folks. The joy of online teaching. Okay, so now what I do, so what I need to happen is I need to obviously start with my default button. So in my default button, I go ahead and I click it, and you can see here what's my interaction. So of course, the scroll behavior, that's something that we don't need to worry about right now, but we need to add an interaction. So I'm going to go ahead and hit plus, and right here, the interaction from my default button to this is a hover. So when I click this and I'm adding that interaction, I need to go over here and on tap. Instead of on tap, I'm going to say while hovering. This is if you're going to take them somewhere else, but we're not doing that for this. So now that has a state. So now we can see when we double click, we can also, there we go, while hovering. So now we've set it to say while hovering, but we also need to connect it. So while hovering, it's going to link to here. So you could say it's going to change to property hover. Now over here, I'm going to just connect these before I change that, or it automatically adds that interaction. And now I'm going to, oops, now I'm going to say, yeah, we can say touchdown. That means now when they actually touch down that button, it's going to change to that. Okay, so now whatever you do over here in these interactions, it will always happen here. It's great. It's kind of like using a style sheet. I'm sure if you're in web, you're learning style sheets. It's just like doing this. If you're using a style master pages in InDesign, it's going to do the same. So whatever happens over here, or even in InDesign in general, if I link to an image, whatever I change to that image, it's going to update. So this makes it really great because everything is over here now. And I'm sure XD, you could do that. I'm totally blanking on this because it's been so long, but personally, I think way, way easier in Figma. So now what we'll do, let's just go ahead and press play and we'll see. Shannon.
When it comes to sizing, do you want to size it in the interactions as well?
Yes. Yeah, you will always size it over here on your actual asset. Is that what you meant? Or
Yeah, that's exactly what I meant.
yeah, I don't. Oh, you can. So you could do that if you want. I don't know if it plays well. Oh, it does. So you can change it here if you want to. I personally just build everything over on the assets, and then I'll have like all my different sizes. I've got my button small, I've got my button large, and I got my button XYZ. So you can. I personally do it over here though. over on those in all on your assets. You can also do that into pages. Again, we'll go over that another time. So if we have different pages, so this is page one, you can have like your assets sitting on page one, and then you can have your actual site on another. It just depends the size of your site, but we'll talk about pages when we get down to our final project. So yeah,
Sorry,
Meg?
Chris. So just going back to me saying all the fun hovers that there are in Figma, are there only like simple hovers? Is it more like can you do something interesting, or is it
Whatever you do to this, to
okay?
however you change the design will be it when it comes down to the actual prototyping. You can, I believe you can do animations. I know you can do animations from one page to the next.
Yeah, I mean, I
Instant,
don't
smart
need to, I
animate.
always tend to want to make things so complex when I just need to, do the fundamentals, honestly.
Yeah,
But
but you know what? Sometimes it's fun, but yes,
but just
100% good to focus on like, let's just make sure we have the interactions proper. Let's make sure that there's like the consistency between them. Like we don't want to change them too much where you're going to confuse a user. Like it looks like an error. Like if I change this to a square button, if someone hovered over that, they'd be like, what the hell's wrong with this website? You'd think something was wrong, right? But you can, there are, and I said, I'm not sure if you can. Of course there is. So you can say while hovering, there could be an animation. So this could be if you hover over like a big box navigation, they would call that. So think about who has this? Probably like Fortinos will have it. So when you hover over it, you get this big, large navigation that comes up. And then you can change how the animation goes. So Smart Animate, I believe, works the best. Pardon me. You could say ease out and you can set the speed of how that's going to be, but it gives you a little like a little GIF on how that works in. So ease in, those probably look the same. Ease in, back out, ease in, out, back. Again, these are probably just custom Bezier. Oh, that's new. Again, most of the time it's going to just be testing them and then pressing play. Do I like this? Do I not? But yes, you can do that. Let's go back to instant. Okay, so again, I've plunked that on there. And now for my interaction, you can see on hover, it's doing this. On click, it changes. Oh, and it stayed there. Oh, right. If it's on click, it's probably going to end up linking to another page. So you wouldn't see that. So let's do that though. So now in the instance of our no bees. Okay, so now what happens? So again, you can see I changed the copy here. So now it's here. So now this is our little prototype. So if I say, okay, I've got my movies here and on click, I want it to go over here. I can set that here on click, again, for my prototype tab to go here. So let's now remove this. And I'm just going to add some text so we can